everybody. Welcome to Fabulous Living with Angela Jones. So glad you're back. So, today's episode is all about waste not, want not. I have been really good, if I must say so myself, with making sure that during this pandemic, I have been really mindful of not wasting food. I've always been pretty good at it, but sometimes I, like on a whim decide, I don't want what's in the refrigerator. I'm just gonna go eat something else, knowing that I have food at home. Or, letting produce spoil and not thinking anything of it just to toss it and buy more. And I've been really conscious, to be very frank, about a lot of things in this last year. I cannot believe, can you guys believe it's been a year that we have been in lockdown? This is crazy. But it's been a year. But I've just tried to be really mindful of being a good steward of what I have and what God has blessed me with, and not to be just so frivolous with things, especially in a time like this when there's so many people that don't have and who are struggling to make ends meet. So I thought today, because I had some things that were on their last leg, that I would salvage those things and turn them into something really scrumptious to eat, and also a gift for someone else. So, my goddaughter's dad works at a big box store, and earlier in the quarantine, he really helped me out by getting a lot of things that were hard to find for me because he could get access to it early. So he'd kind of, put some aside for me and make sure that I was all squared away, which I thought was so nice. So even though that was, a couple of months ago, he's recently had a birthday, and my goddaughter shared with me that how much he loves sweets. And I remember that, I was like, ooh, I can kind of hook him up with some stuff. So, speaking of things not, going south, I don't eat bananas, but my son does, right? So I had some bananas that are on their way out. These we're going to turn into banana bread. Then I also had quite a few Granny Smith apples that we both love, but, just didn't get around to eating them. I bought way too many, and then we didn't eat them. So I'm going to turn those into some apple hand pies, and I'll tell you a little bit of the story behind those. So for starters, as you can see, I already have my butter going back here. I have 2 tablespoons of unsalted butter going back here in the back on the stove. And then I diced very finely some those Granny Smith apples. I diced 3 of them. Typically you would use 2 big ones, but I diced 3 so that I would have enough. So I'm going to put those in my skillet back here. And I'm going to add all of the sugar and the spices to it. So that will form a nice caramel sauce that is going to form for us to use to put in our puff pastry. And I'm going to tell you about that in a second, because you're going to remember that from one of the earlier episodes. So I'm putting in 1/3 of a cup of brown sugar. Then we're going to add a teaspoon of ground cinnamon. Ooh, a quarter of a teaspoon of nutmeg. Nutmeg is very, very powerful spice, so you don't want to use a lot of that. And get that off of my parchment paper. Definitely don't want that on my parchment paper. it's already starting to smell good. I love the smell of cinnamon. Love it. So let's get that stirred up. We're gonna let that go for about 5 to 10 minutes. And I have it on medium-high heat. And I want that to just get really nice and caramelized. Alright. So, for our crust, like I said, puff pastry. Remember, I guess now it's almost been 3 weeks ago. Can't believe that it's been a month since I started doing the show. It's so exciting. But remember that puff pastry that I used for the brie and croute? Remember that? Well, I had another sheet left. So I was like, again, waste not, want not. So we're going to use the puff pastry and put our filling in there. So I have just the one sheet, right? So I'm only going to make a few of these, obviously. So my thinking is I should be able to make 4. Yeah, and I'm kind of freestyling it and eyeballing it, but probably could have. Some of them are going to be a little bigger. That's okay. You don't have to be exact. So we're going to take a look at this again. I'm going to add a little water to it, just a little bit. And let that cook down. These 4 all set. Now what I'm going to do, we don't need this, move that out of the way. I'm going to move this until our apples cook down. And then we're going to have to let those rest for a little bit. But it smells so good in here. I'm just going to put a little pinch of salt in there. So let me get some kosher salt. I'm just going to put a little salt, just a little. Like I said, just a little pinch of salt. All right. So while that is going, let's get started on this bread pudding. I'm sorry, excuse me. Banana bread. Got the other show on my mind. So, we are going to take butter that I've already melted. It's just a half a stick of unsalted butter. Melted. Add that to our bowl. Then we have 1 cup white sugar. And we're just gonna whisk it. Or you can use a spoon. You don't have to use a whisk. I just happen to like to whisk the butter and everything. Get it nice and fluffy. And we're going to add 2 eggs. That one didn't want to cooperate. All right. Got a little shell in there. Happens to the best of us. We'll keep whisking. All right. Next, we're going to add our dry ingredients. So I already have a 1.5 cups of all-purpose flour and a teaspoon of salt and a 1/2 teaspoon of, I already have, let's try this again. 1.5 cups of all-purpose flour, a teaspoon of baking soda, and a 1/2 teaspoon of kosher salt. All right. And you don't want this to be, it's a thicker batter. So you don't want it to be, it shouldn't be super thin, but it shouldn't be super thick either. You know? So next, let's add our cinnamon, and then we'll finish with our sour cream. So we're going to add I like to add like about a teaspoon of cinnamon, because you want it to be, you want it to have a little spice to it. So a teaspoon of cinnamon, and then we're going to finish with sour cream. And sour cream is going to make this so incredibly moist. And again, I had this left over from another something that I baked, and I'm like, we're going to use up what we have here. I just find that oftentimes we just waste so much money. Oh, we waste a lot of money. Now, this is getting a little thick, so I'm going to grab a wooden spoon. I just feel like we waste a lot of money on food. And it's just, it's, when we just think about how much, I took the apples off the heat, and I'm just going to let those cool down before we add them to the puff pastry and place them in the oven. All right, we got a good chunk of that out. All right. Okay, there, now we're in business. So this is typically this would go in a 9x5 loaf pan, but I decided that because I already had these cute little mini loaf pans that are disposable, so it's nice for gifting. I had these at Christmas time. They're nice for gifting, and then it's a nice presentation, and then you can bake it and gift it in the same little pan, which I think is wonderful. So we have our batter there, reset. Used up the last of that sour cream, yay. And next, we're gonna put in about a 1/2 cup of chopped pecans. My daughter said he really loves nuts, so I put a little extra in there. A little extra. Never hurt anybody. Especially if you really like something. You're like, ooh, this is extra nutty or what have you. So, yeah, that's gonna be perfect. Now we're gonna take 2 bananas, our over-ripened bananas, and I like to mash mine. Some recipes say, oh, they just slice them, but I really like to mash them so that the banana taste gets all the way through there. And it also helps, because they're overripe, it also helps them to be, helps the bread to be extra moist as well. So, I'm gonna take my potato masher and just mash them up. And they could have actually been even riper, but these are good because they're ripe. But even if they had been darker, browner, they would have been okay. But they were just about to the point where I know my son wasn't going to eat them. So I'm like, yeah, we're gonna repurpose those. So get it all mashed all the way through. I don't like to see any big chunks of it. And that get it there. Actually, you just come back, and then we add the star of the show to the dish. And then we want to just fold these in. Make sure they're all well blended into the batter. Okay. And now we're ready to add the batter to our little mini loaf pan. And just so you see, that's the consistency that we want. I think you'll be able to see that from another angle also once we get it, but just wanted you to take a peek at that. And I'm filling them halfway. And I've set aside 6 because I think I'm going to have just enough for 6 loaves, which is perfect. And the other thing, you know, I love this. I guess you probably are like, and you know what's so weird? I know I've been saying it a lot. I don't really do a lot of freezing of things, but the things that I know I can freeze that I don't mind having, you know, frozen and then reviving it again or what have you, or baking it off or what have you, you know, I don't mind freezing. And banana bread is something that freezes extremely well. So he's a single guy, but he can always just stick these in his freezer for consumption later, which you guys know I love. All right, and that is perfect. I mean, we have exactly 6 loaves. That's gonna rise up. They're gonna be magnificent. So I am going to, I already have the oven set, but I'm gonna reset it because I'm gonna put these in first. So I have the oven set for 350. I'm gonna put these on the top rack, and normally these cook pretty fast in these mini tins and these mini pans. So I'm going to say we probably only need to have them in there for maybe about 35 to 40 minutes. A little bit less because if we had them in a 9x5 pan, it would take about an hour for it to bake. So like I said, these tend to cook faster because they're so small. So I'm going to say anywhere from 30 to 45 minutes. We're just going to check it out and see. So we're going to get those in. And those are set. And now our apples, we're going to continue to allow those to cool for a little bit longer. And they're getting nice, and the sauce is getting really nice and thick. I'm going to zap them in the freezer for a second just to let them cool down some more before we add them to our puff pastry. So back in a few. All right, welcome back everybody. So our apples are nice and caramelized, yum. And we have our 4 squares of puff pastry. So I'm going to just place on one side, like, you know, like about a tablespoon, maybe a little bit more, but about a tablespoon. I just want to make sure sure I have enough for each one, and then I'll go back in and add more if needed. So this is just the consistency we want. And those nice diced apples mean you're gonna get a little bit of a bite of the apple in each bite that you take. Yum! That one needs a little more love, and we'll put a little more in this one and this one. All right. And then we want to just fold your triangle over. Press them down so that we don't want that apple filling to ooze out. We want it to stay inside. You can do this with a fork also, but your hands are just as good. Actually, with the spoon again, this one kind of wants to escape, so we want to push it back in there. Here we go. Same over here. We have a little hand pie. And then I also wanted to do these too, because I thought about them around Black History Month when I did the meal for the last day of Black History Month, when we did the Southern-ish, the soul food-ish meal. Because my mom has always told me the story about how my great-grandmother used to make hand pies. She'd make peach, apple, I'm trying to think of the other one that she said that she used to make. And she'd sell them like to the workers that were working like near the railroad and everything, like back in the day. And she'd wrap them in wax paper. So I'm gonna do the same thing for these. It's gonna be so cute. So anyway, we have that all set. And we just really wanna make sure that they're secure in there, because like I said, that defeats the whole purpose. We want our apples to stay in there. Then to really secure it, and then to also make it nice and pretty and shiny, much like we did with the brie and croute, remember? We have our egg wash, we have 1 egg, and just a little bit of cold water that we blended together, that we beat together, and now we're gonna brush that over our hand pies. And a brain freeze. And really want to make sure we get it around the edges so that we make sure that, like I said, everything stays in there. All of that yummy apple filling stays in there. So, there. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to sit these in the fridge, because puff pastry will actually puff better if it's a little cold. So while we're waiting on the banana I don't know why I have pudding on the mind. I think from doing the bread pudding a couple of weeks ago. The banana bread to finish up, because I said 350, we want these at 425 because these are going to cook faster. So I'm going to just slide these in the fridge for a little while, wait on the bread, the banana bread to come out, and then I'll get the oven all set for 425 and put these on the top rack. And they're going to stay in for about 15 to 18 minutes until they're a nice golden brown. And even if a little bit of it oozes out, we want to see some of it, you know, that's fine if it's oozing out a little bit of it too, because I like them to look like how these aren't perfect triangles. I like them to look kind of rustic and to have like some of that filling come out and yummy, and then it kind of caramelizes on the crust. Yum! So, we'll be back in a few. I'm gonna zap these in, and by the time we come back, the banana bread will be done. See you in a few. Welcome back. Doesn't it look lovely? Who knew that your busted bananas can make such a lovely, delightful treat? So, complete transparency. A lot of banana breads don't call for vanilla, but I always put vanilla in mine. But I was moving around so fast I forgot to put the vanilla in. Nice little tip, because we're all human. Things happen. And I told you guys in another episode, I'm going to keep it completely 100 with you about stuff. So I didn't have the vanilla in there, right? So what I did was I poked holes in each one with the toothpick. Then I made a glaze, which I was going to do anyway, that has 2 tablespoons of butter, a little bit of cinnamon, some granulated sugar, and melted butter. Did I say melted? So melted butter, cinnamon, granulated sugar. But I also added the vanilla in it. So it almost kind of made it like a syrup. And then it's going to seep down into the actual banana bread. Now, for most things, like if you're making something that's like vanilla cake, you miss vanilla, that's kind of impotent. So yeah, it's not going to work. But in something like banana bread, it's not going to be missed as much because there's so many other flavors going on in there. But things happen. We forget stuff. I forget stuff as long as I've been baking. I didn't freak out. Normally I would have been like, oh my God, I gotta stop taping. Stop the tape. No, we're gonna make it work. Again, we're not wasting anything here. So, everything's all set. And I also wanted to mention that if you don't want to use pecans, you can use walnuts. Most banana breads actually call for either one. It's a matter of preference. A lot of them call for walnuts, but I didn't have any walnuts. I had tons of pecans, so we went with pecans. Again, we're not wasting anything. We're not running to the store for anything. So, next, I'm going to place all of them in these lovely cellophane bags. And then I also happened to have some ribbon left from a tailgate or something that I did with when my son was playing football in college. And it was just enough. It was amazing. It was just enough for these 6 breads. So we are using this. He's a Redskins fan, and it's very similar to Redskins colors, so we're going to go for it. We're going to make it work. He won't care. He's just going to care about how delicious and moist this lovely bread is. So we're going to place each one down in the cellophane bags. And then I'm just going to simply, leave a little room in there. And then I'm going to tie each one up. And then we're going to have a lovely little gift that didn't cost much. It's a nice little treat. There you have it. Which is great. And actually, I don't think I'm actually going to tie it into a bow. I think I'm just going to tie it more into like a little knot kind of deal like that. So, we have them all done. They are so cute. I had one little piece of ribbon left. I thought that I had only cut 6, but I cut 7. But I feel much better about just throwing away this one little piece of ribbon as opposed to all this ribbon. Ribbon is a little pricey. So I was able to repurpose it, made a lovely little gifts. This is going to be great. So we're set there. So now, let's wrap our hand pies. I'm so excited about these. I'm so happy. So let me tell you what I did. So I ended up, because I felt like my mother in my ear saying, like, as she watches it, no, crimp it with a fork. Don't just use your finger. So I was like, she's right. And I'm glad I did. So I did end up going back through and crimping them with a fork. But don't they look lovely? They're beautiful, beautiful. So I really feel like I channeled my great grandmother with these. I'm super duper psyched. I'm so psyched. Although she wouldn't have used puff pastry, but you get what I'm saying. So we're just gonna wrap them. Actually, yeah, this way. There we go. And I'm gonna give them to them just like this, like old school. And I actually think I have some seals around here, so I can actually seal them. And then I'm going to, I'm sure I have a basket or something that I can place them in. Yeah, and then we have our perfect little gifts here. And then what I'll probably do is, if I don't have anything, I'll look tonight, of course, and if I don't have anything, then I will probably just run across the bridge to Home Goods to find a basket to put everything in. And I have a lovely note all set that I'm going to add to it to add a little personal touch. And then we're set. Oh, it smells so good. I want one so bad. But I won't. I'm gonna make sure he gets all of them. And like I said, once it's all in our little gift basket with a nice note, we're all set with a lovely little gift. And I think this is such a nice little touch. Right now we can't gather, but you can do a socially distanced drop off, as I've done during the quarantine, a nice like porch gift is what I've been calling them. Like, hey, you know, call my friends, hey, come outside and just drop something off at your porch. And then I do a wave from the, you know, driveway. But it's still a nice little way to stay connected to people. And it's just a nice way to let people know that you're thinking of them. And, you know, when this is all over, we're going to be able to do this live and in person sometime soon. So hope you enjoyed today's show. Blessings. See you next time.